Hello and welcome, I'm Liam the Music Reviewer. No Weezer slander on my timeline. No Weezer slander on my timeline. And today we're going to be talking about the hotly anticipated new Arctic Monkeys album that's due out this Friday, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. And yeah, I did listen to a leak. I hardly think Arctic Monkeys are going to be able to lose much sleep, especially because in my eyes I'm fine when it comes to these bigger acts whose albums I've already bought before, and to be honest I'll probably end up buying this one as well, especially because, to be fair, of the amount of times that you usually stream somebody's music, you're probably giving them like 0.000004 pence. Much better to hear the music so I know whether or not to buy it when it comes out. But yeah, enough about ethics and music journalism. Let's get into the album itself, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, which I'm just going to call Tranquility just to save myself the tongue twisting of that whole title, because I'll no doubt screw that up. Not good with names. But the Arctic Monkeys, if you don't know who they are, where have you been for like the past decade and a half? The Arctic Monkeys are a Sheffield indie rock outfit who hit the ground running when it came to their debut album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, which just had this laddish charm to it, which sadly has been done to death since its release, but you can't really blame the Arctic Monkeys for that. It's just kind of like the sad reality that like nearly every indie rock band, even to this day, are still trying to copy that sound, and they haven't realised that it does get a bit old, and really the only reason that the debut album is as good as it is because Alex Turner's always had a way with words, and that really hasn't changed much at all throughout their career. They had good to great records after that, back to back, up until 2013's AM, which was sadly not that good of an album. There's a few good rock bops on there, but sadly it didn't really keep much of the charm or just really anything all that appealing, if I'm being honest. There wasn't really a nice little kind of like feeling that I get from like nearly every Arctic Monkeys record. That, on top of how Alex Turner tries to act like he's so remarkably cool on it, but he doesn't really justify that demeanour by any stretch of the imagination. It just ended up being an Arctic Monkeys record that, yes, was so much more commercially successful than any of their material prior to it, but in that exchange they did lose what I think many believe was the real reason that they stuck with them for the past few years. And since then, not really much has been coming out from the guys since 2013. Just been a huge rumour mill basically. Alex Turner made another album with The Last Shadow Puppets, which was just so bland in my eyes. I don't really have much of a strong attachment to that project at all. Jamie Cook and the handsome boy Nick O'Malley got up to really nothing as far as I know, and drummer Matt Helders collaborated with Iggy Pop and Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age on Post-Pop Depression, so he was up to something. I think it was like a well-earned break, because they toured that extensively with AM that you could just tell they did not enjoy playing it as much. I saw them at Tea Park back in 2014 when they headlined. It was such a boring performance, but I think it's because it was so over rehearsed that they themselves just didn't enjoy just playing at all. So well earned break. That brings us up to Tranquility here, which feels like the most Alex Turner centric project to date. He came to the band back in 2016 with demos he'd written and concocted on a Steinway piano, which led to Cook basically saying to Turner, hey, just why don't you go do a solo album? But Turner seemed to be pretty insistent on making sure this was an Arctic Monkeys project, not just his own thing. The details between then and now are a bit muddy, but it can be assumed that basically the band just started writing around what Alex Turner had brought forward, and Helders mentioned that during recording he played with more restraint than on previous records, noting that it's about playing for the songs. And that whole kind of like restraint, subduedness absolutely shows on this album, and it's no real surprise that we didn't get really any singles prior to its release, because this is undoubtedly the band's most cohesive record to date. So there isn't really like a song on there. I know that sometimes you can have a cohesive record where there are like a few ones that kind of like could be played on the radio and that, but there's no real song on here where I'm like that sort of stands out from the mould that it sets itself at all. There's maybe one or two where I feel like they're more kind of like pop friendly, yes, but bar one or two, I don't see this being quite the commercially viable album in the same sense that AM was, when there was like 3 or 4 singles coming from that one. Unlike the wishy-washiness of AM, Tranquility just manages to build this atmosphere together from the absolute get-go, and it just never falters at all. That was the one thing that I was really unsure of because of AM, but I was just totally convinced within the first few tracks. Tranquility makes its influences known as soon as it starts, and for context sake, for every like Arctic Monkeys release, it's always started off with the most kind of like anthemic track, or one of the more anthemic tracks from that release. So View from the Afternoon, Brian Storm, My Propeller, She Thunderstorms, and Do I Wanna Know are all class examples of that, but the intro track Star Treatment isn't like that at all. It just plays it just a lot more chill, but not in a way that somebody could interpret it as being dull by any means. Turner's vocals are just back on form. On AM, they felt almost uninteresting at points, as if he was trying to be, like I say, he was trying to be too cool, to the point where they just kind of just there was not like that kind of match at all. It kind of made it not as much fun to actually listen to, whereas here he's just having a lot more fun with it. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, where this isn't like a huge like fun filled album by any stretch, it gets to that point where like you can tell that Alex Turner just had a good time making this, especially in the second verse of Star Treatment. They're talking about like ghosts and entities briefly, and he's like this kind of like hushful crooning around, as if like you could imagine him being on stage performing that and just kind of like moving about like that, just kind of like all sneakily and that, trying to like act cool. But in this way, it's not like he justifies it by like to the point of where it seems like it's a character. And I feel like that, unlike when people try and say in AM that he's trying to do a character, I feel like this is such like a kind of like more fleshed out world that he's crafting here, with all these different mannerisms and different like projections, that it feels like kind of like just more fleshed out. And I think he has a lot of fun doing it, and it is a lot of fun to like watch him just kind of like have a laugh through this, but manages to like deliver some like really kind of not so much like deliver important subject matter, but explore some important subject matter in a way that like only he and a few others can. This song and just the overall sound of Tranquility just feels like it could fit snugly into like a neo-noir film. It's kind of like confirmed from all the promotion and just this kind of album in general that cinema played some sort of role in it. He outright mentions Alex Turner, he outright mentions Blade Runner in a line that it's just downright funny. Like, he has this like nice wee verse where he's being quite transparent, he's doing all this like nice delivery, and then just kind of like cuts himself off like this like daft line that feels intentional, that feels like his kind of like dry wit, and that kind of dry wit that you do see in a lot of these films. It feels like he's incorporating these, like, it's not just a case of like he's referencing something. Like, you get a lot of artists who just think referencing something's enough. Like, I think you need to kind of like do something with it, and I feel like it works in Alex Turner and the Arctic Monkeys' favour. In an interview, Alex Turner said about this song that it sets the sound for the rest of the songs. It was like an open door that allowed us to immerse ourselves with this new sound, and that's certainly the case as we move on here, because while it is a new sound, there are moments that hark back to earlier moments in their career. One Point Perspective opens up in a similar fashion to what you'd come to expect with something from maybe like a cut from Humbug, but it's all rolled in with some like soulful, jazzy throwbacks, all fueled from Cook's guitars as well as Turner's piano. Again, we get references to cinema. This time it's Italian horror, but and this time around it's incorporated just fantastically with these kind of like eerie keys that transition into American sports. Oh, man, this is like one of like my favourite music moments of 2018. It's such like a little touch, and transitions are like hugely important, so when they're done as well as they are here, you truly do admire them and appreciate them to the extent that I do with this one. It makes it feel like such a polished product, but maybe not in the way that people, when they say something's polished, they usually kind of mean like, oh, the production value is of a high standard. That's not really the case here, not because it's like it's not like lo-fi by any means, but like when it came to the vocals, like a lot of them came from Alex Turner recording them at home on a 8-track machine. It feels polished more in the way of something that's been like meticulously thought out. So the idea itself has been polished and refined enough that like basically the way they went about it wasn't so much. It's like a nice juxtaposition, I think. That's how I think of it anyway. Having these vocals, having these kind of like old-timey instrumentals going on, it makes it feel like it could fit into like an old school like film, but having these kind of like almost like futuristic kind of like settings, like being on the moon and all that, it is very much kind of like, obviously mentions like Blade Runner's in that same kind of vein. It's like an old kind of like old school film, but it's not old school film, it's like what, like the 1980s. It's not like that old, but like it's kind of still getting something from like an old kind of aesthetic, but exploring new horizons, and that's very much what Arctic Monkeys are doing here. They're not sticking to the same old. I did think this was going to be AM2, and I'm so glad that it's not. Yeah, Alex Turner just does a good job of like really pushing himself, I think, because when it comes to his lyrics before, I don't think he's ever done something as really ambitious of like creating a landscape or a location. It's not the full focus of this album, but he's managing to balance a lot of things, talk about politics and technology in a way that doesn't feel kind of like Trump is bad or technology bad. Like, he's exploring it from a different kind of perspective, exploring it in a way that just feels kind of like refreshing. And like I say, there's this kind of like whole like nice clash of the old and the new going on here. You can tell that probably like the impact of like other big singer-songwriters at the moment are making him want to really just kind of like push himself out of his comfort zone, and it results in this album that I just feel had this like whole mesmerising journey to it. Every time I've listened to it, it is not like an instant gratification sort of album where like as soon as you listen to it, you know that this is gonna be truly great. A lot of hip hop records are like that for me, where like I know from the get go because of production, whereas like this one's been one where like I've just had so much fun listening to it and analysing it. We still get some daftness though when it comes to lyrics. We've got the line "Kiss me under the moon, side boob," which can be both funny as well as kind of romantic depending on how you look at it, and obviously with like it kind of refers to the moon base, much like the title of the album is, Tranquility Base. But Turner taking on this like whole 70s perspective by talking about how much like technological advances like really bloody get him in the mood, and that whole kind of like Yorkshire delivery. It's just there's like a lot of fun to this album, but it feels like an album that wants to be taken quite seriously while not kind of like getting rid of like the Arctic Monkeys charm. Really, I do think some people are going to find this album boring, or like that's pretty much where I feel like a lot of people that really loved AM or the first two albums are going to think this is not what I wanted. But the thing is, I think 2018 is going to be this kind of like year where these acts that people have been waiting ages for. Again, I'm going to mention Jack White because I've not mentioned him enough this year, haven't I? Where like they're really like pushing themselves. I don't think this is like as experimental as Jack White's album, but in terms of their career, it definitely is like just a new direction for them, which just pays off. I cannot really think of like a really weak moment here. I can maybe see people being like not as intrigued by the aesthetic or the sound palette that they're taking from here, but I'm all on board here. I absolutely like just kind of love what they're doing with this. Now, you know how I was mentioning about how there's not been any singles released and how there's like one or two tracks that feel like they could be like a single, and 4 out of 5 is definitely that. It's like a highlight from a record that's just full of highlights, and it's basically the closest they get to crafting a true single on here. It just seems unstoppable with how it just kind of like slowly builds up. There's like these gritty distortion ridden guitars popping up during the second verse, which are just kind of juxtaposed again. That's kind of like the word of the day for this review. They have like beautiful harmonies, weirdly enough, for a song that will be like a critical darling. This kind of song just sees Turner like lament about ratings. Surprise with like a thing about being in like a hotel. The whole 4 out of 5 thing refers to the whole rating system there, but it's obviously Turner talking about just how music is reviewed, how fans are perceiving his music. It just doesn't seem to be sitting with him all that well. And yeah, in addition, we get kind of like more information about the album's location, and it gives Tranquility this other layer that makes it just again like a treat to listen to. I think that there's not really any record or any sort of material that the Arctic Monkeys have dropped where they've managed to juggle so many things at once. So this has to be kind of like commended. It makes it feel like it justifies it kind of like the path that it's going down. It doesn't feel tacky or like two-dimensional. It does feel, like I say, fleshed out. I could go through this album like track by track, but I just don't want this review to be any longer than it already will be at this point, because my thing already says I'm like nearly 20 minutes into audio just now, so yeah, I don't want to go any further. But we're going to talk about science fiction, and not that science fiction, definitely not. Much like the rest of this record, the location of Tranquility Base is used to kind of like critique our own world, which I think makes this more interesting when it talks about politics, because again, some people say just some like really derivative stuff. That's what that new Frank Turner album felt like to me. Like, it wasn't really saying anything all that interesting, and while I don't think anything from this album is going to be like the cannon fodder for like a revolution or anything quite like that, I do think that it's going to be at least like nice little points, and all that said in a way that even Alex Turner admits here, like he wants to make kind of like really simple points about peace and love, but in a sexy way where it's not obvious. And there's just a lot of like kind of like he takes hits, like or makes hits against himself. It is a very introspective project where like he's looking not only at the rest of the world but also at himself. It's self-aware, it's probably the right word to use for songs like this. But I need to mention also science fiction, like there is this whole kind of like these kind of like weird Simpson keys that make it feel like the soundtrack to well, like how you'd think like a science fiction movie. But while there's all these different kind of like cinematic influences, there doesn't feel like there's any like something like kind of like a harsh transition between them all. They all feel like they mix in very well with one another. And on Science Fiction, Turner talks about this relationship, kind of like says like, oh, how he's not going to be able to stay with her, quite like how science fiction's impact as a genre does, which again kind of like shows like some sort of like awareness, and says it in a way that like, yeah, he's not just saying it in a very like basic way. Like again, I think he does a good wee job here. I'm really not really kind of like thinking of any major criticisms here. I see people calling the vocals cringy. I do not get that at all. The vocals of Alex Turner are the best they've been so long. He's having so much fun. The delivery here is varied enough where there feels like it's too jarring whatever the sound is. Like I say, it feels like a totally cohesive project here. The band, while they're kind of like they're very much in the background here more than they've ever been before, I feel like that's almost a compliment to how they viewed their contribution to this, because I don't think they wanted. It's not quite like how A Fair Worst Nightmare, like Matt Helder's kind of like steals the show sometimes with his drumming. Everyone's kind of like playing their part, and it makes all like a very, very like smooth end result here. As I say, I love kind of like the whole world building that's going on here. It's not like huge deep lore or anything like that, but it's just kind of like really like interesting stuff. Like they talk about like an exodus happening on Earth, and that like there's never like there's not like a huge like strong narrative running through here, but there's like little bits in every song where you're like, oh, I can like draw the dots here, where again it does feel like it's a bit more of an ambitious project going on. It definitely makes it feel like it's not quite a flat product where it's like it's like the facade of trying to be more important or like self-righteous or anything like that, like how some people try and view AM as being something more than it actually is. On this record it feels like, yeah, it has got something to say, it's got an interesting way of going about it, and overall just had a great time with this album. I'm not sure how the rest of the Arctic Monkey fan base is going to view this. I don't know how people in general are going to take to this at all. I don't think it's going to be quite I don't think it's going to be too jarring, because I think there's probably a lot of reference points people can draw from, like Bowie and the like pit sounds. But yeah, just a very good album. I'm happy we're in a timeline just now that while there's a lot of shit going on, we can finally get excited about Arctic Monkeys. They're here to be taken more seriously. They're here to show their worth. Alex Turner here proving himself as, in my eyes, one of the best musicians that Britain has to offer. And yeah, just had a grand time with this. I'm feeling a strong 8 on this. A strong 8. Never thought I'd be saying this about this album, but yeah. Oh, sorry if this review's went on a bit too long. I won't know this until I've edited it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys make. If you also have already listened to this album illegally, then just let me know what you make of it. If you're watching this after it comes out, then yeah, let me know what you think. Favourite songs, worst songs. I'll link mine in the description along with all my social media links, just other stuff. Me and the podcast boys will be talking about this on Friday for the podcast, talking about that in the MCU, so keep your eyes out, or ears more like, when it comes to that. Listen to other episodes, I'll link them wherever just now. And yeah, just hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you guys very soon.